What's going on, guys? John with Bull-Throttle Trading here. Today I wanted to make another video like I did yesterday, going through more of these stocks that have earning reports coming out this week. So I went through all of the stocks that I found that have earning statements coming out tomorrow morning before the market opens. And I wanted to kind of break down the ones that I saw the most value in. And again, I don't want you guys to feel like you need to trade these stocks if it's not something that you see value in. Just because I do doesn't mean that I'm always right. I just kind of wanted to show you guys why I see value in them, and then give you guys the opportunity to, if you see the same, then great, now you have a possible opportunity. And if not, well then, hey, you can carry on doing your own thing. So that's the joy about the stock market. Well, if you guys are ready, let's dive on in. All right, the first stock we're looking at is Duke Energy, right? So we can see that Duke had this low of 62.13 when everything crashed, and that was our support level, so we bounced up. Now what's nice about this is they recovered pretty quickly, right? So they had a nice strong push up, and then they got these higher lows, higher highs, and then it looks like we've kind of been selling off. So looking at the SMA line, we can see we're in a downward trend, and it's trading below the SMA line. Okay, so this earnings report can be very big for this company, right? We can see with the RSI we're below 50, so we're on the oversold side, right? And where our MACD is showing we're in that climbing upwards now, right? So if this earnings is good, it could be a good positive catalyst to push us above the SMA line and possibly bring us close to hitting this previous resistance. We need to pay attention to this and wait and see what's going to happen. Again, with the RSI being in the middle, it's, like I said, it is more on the oversold side. However, if this was a bad earnings statement, which it very well may be, it did recover quickly, but we could see it's kind of slowly been going back down since it kind of had this pop back up. So I'm curious to see what their earnings are going to be. I'm going to do a alert here and set for above. And I'm going to set another one for below this support, just to kind of get an idea of where this ends up moving in the morning, so we can kind of see if this might be worth making some moves on, whether as a day trade or a swing trade. Again, we want to wait for confirmation and see what happens with this earning report and go from there, right? Okay. The next one I have is the Honda Motor Company. So we could see that Honda had a nice drop off here again, coronavirus. Okay, so we hit this low in 1938, had a pretty strong push back up, right? And then we drop back down, and we're getting these higher lows, right? We kind of had this steady resistance point, right? And then we broke above it. We got above the SMA line, and then we broke kind of below. We've kind of been consolidating here a little bit, right? So now we have this lower high here. We haven't really gotten lower lows yet. So this is definitely the way that this has been growing since it dropped off. We could see that even though the SMA line is a downtrend, we could see that since this big drop, Honda's been pushing back up for the most part, right? So our earnings statement here with Honda, it may be better than expected. It may act as some kind of a positive catalyst. So again, this is why I added this to my list. So I want you guys to, take something from these videos and be able to look. Now, one of the things that we do want to pay attention to is Honda is very overbought, right? So we're above 50 on the RSI. Our MACD looks like it's starting to lose momentum, right? So naturally, without an earnings statement, we could assume that this would probably start to pull off, right? And again, we haven't established these lower lows. So again, this is one that I definitely want to keep my eye on. If this is a good, a positive earnings statement that comes out tomorrow morning before the market opens, it could help push Honda up and get these higher highs and continue this push, right? So again, it's still on the on the overbought side. So we definitely want to again manage our risk and be very careful and keep a close eye on what this does and wait for confirmation again before taking a position. This is your hard-earned money that you worked hard for. So let's try to put it in trades that make sense, right? Especially if we're under the PDT rule. If we only have 3 trades per 5 days, let's make sure that the trades that we enter are going to maximize our return. Okay? So again, I just feel like Honda has been pretty bullish since this drop, and this could possibly, bring out a good earnings tomorrow before the market and allow us to, possibly have an opportunity here. Okay, so the next one that I have here, this is Radcom. So again, Radcom had this sell-off, and you guys are probably starting to pick up on the patterns that I've been kind of scanning for, right? So we had this drop off with the coronavirus, and again, we've been getting these higher highs and these higher lows. So we're getting this very bullish, recovery going, and this could be very good for earnings statement, right? We might get some good news on this, or it may not be as bad as they were expecting. And you can see we're kind of approaching this SMA line, right? So we're testing this SMA line. We are a little bit on the overbought side, so again, we want to make sure that we pay attention. But looking at the MACD, we can see that the inertia has kind of been picking up. We've been coming around. Our blue line is kind of approaching this intersection point with our white line on the MACD. So again, this is one that I want to pay very close attention to, right? And with this one being a little bit less per share, it offers, for a beginner, it offers a little bit more of a return with a smaller position size, right? So I mean, right now it's trading around $7.50 versus Honda Motor Company's around 25. So it again, it's just something to pay attention to, right? This stock has had this pretty strong bullish trend going since this drop off, and that could be good for our earnings statement. So if we get a good earnings, it might get us above this SMA line and start to pick up, you know what I mean? And we might be able to get back up here where it was normally trading around, which we could see is about a 20% potential for margin. So this is another one that could be a very, very good opportunity depending on how this earnings statement goes. So again, let's keep an eye on this one. I'm going to set some alerts here. I want to be ready if I see an opportunity come out with Radcom and I get an alert. This way I can be prepared to make a move if need be. Okay, the next one I have is Casper Sleep Incorporated. So this is the company that makes the memory foam mattresses that you go to order online. And again, we have this same similar kind of pattern, right? So we have the sell-off. We hit lows of $2.08, and we've been pushing very aggressively since, right? So we've been getting these higher highs, these higher lows, and we have a very bullish run coming here, right? Now we have an earnings statement again coming out tomorrow before market opens, and again, we can see that this is overbought. So depending on what happens with this earnings statement, even though we're overbought, we might end up seeing some kind of a push on this, right? We can see that we're kind of leveling off as far as our upward momentum, right? So we can see that our higher highs aren't getting as higher, so that we can see that this line is kind of starting to flatten out, and this one is still continuing this upward trend. So again, this is one that we want to pay close attention to. It could offer a nice potential. If the earnings statement comes out well, we can see that we had this previous resistance of $15.85. which is going to offer us about a 90% margin. Now, again, I'm not saying that this earnings statement is going to be enough to push it back up to this point. However, it could be a good positive catalyst to help us break above this resistance line and continue our bullish movement, right? Again, it's oversold, so we definitely want to keep an eye on it and manage our risk. But it is something that does offer some kind of potential, and that's why I've added to my list, right? And again, this is another lower cap stock, so if it does end up being a positive catalyst tomorrow, this is something that could potentially offer more return for those who are maybe only investing with a couple of $100 or maybe $1,000. So it's a nice way to potentially make good money with a smaller position size. Okay, the next one that I have on here is DYNA Incorporated. Now, as we can see on this one, we had an aggressive push off, and then we had, a very big recovery back, almost halfway the way back. We pulled back down. We got these higher lows, though, and as you can see, we've had a very aggressive bullish run since. We've carried above the SMA line, right? So we got above it. Now let's look at the RSI and the MACD. Dynatrace is very overbought right now, right? So this may be something, and we can kind of assume that looking, all right, so we have this previous resistance here, and let's carry that across. So we're approaching this previous resistance. So we may end up being able to push above this barrier depending on how these earnings go. I mean, even if the earnings are good, it doesn't mean that we can't hit this point and start to bounce back down again. So again, this is one that we want to manage our risk. We want to pay attention to what it does and be aware that we have this resistance point that is very close to where it's trading at now. So, we might want to, see a bounce here and wait and establish a higher low and then possibly buy in. So like if this pulls back and maybe hits this point, and then we have this positive earnings statement and it pulls back and then it breaks above this and we start getting these higher highs and maybe have a good entrance position. Right now I wouldn't buy into this just yet with it being this oversold, and obviously waiting to see what the earnings statement does when it comes out. But again, it was one that I felt was at least worth mentioning and keeping an eye on. I'm not going to set any alerts on this one. But I will. I've added it to my watch list here, so I will check on it tomorrow throughout the day and see what it's doing, and then maybe set some alerts tomorrow, depending on what it does. If I see a possible pullback, and then maybe establishing a higher support level and waiting for that confirmation to buy in on another up trade. So again, I'm not going to make this a high priority, but I am going to keep an eye on it. All right, next we have 8x8 Incorporated, and this one we can see, so we had this aggressive sell-off again, COVID-19, and we've kind of been doing this, we call this a bullish flag, right? So we have this resistance point up here that's fairly horizontal, right? I mean, I know we had some lowers and we broke above, but we have pretty much a fairly horizontal pattern here with the resistance, and we can see that with our support levels we're starting to climb up, right? So we're forming this bullish flag, right? So this is a pattern that we want to pay attention to. Now we've broken above this previous support level, and because of that we can see that we are on the overbought side. Depending on this earnings statement, we can see a continued push, right? And we might start to pass some of these previous resistance levels and get some higher highs here. We may again see a pullback and see it come down and bounce on this SMA line, or we may see a pullback where it could come down to this previous resistance point. Again, as we know, old resistance points become new support levels, right? That typically is the pattern. Now, does the pattern necessarily have to happen every time? No, but it's something that we want to pay attention to and be aware of, so that we can potentially make better trades in the future, correct? All right, so this is one. Again, I'm not going to set any alerts on this just yet, but I am going to monitor this and see how it opens, and go from there, and then maybe again add some alerts on this tomorrow if I see value in it. All right, the last one that I have on the day is the Infinera Corporation. And again, so we have this aggressive sell off, and then we've had very bullish movement, right? And we kind of hit this peak here. We broke above the SMA line, and we kind of started having this pullback. And we can see that we have this support level down here that's fairly horizontal, and the same thing with the resistance. So we broke above this resistance here, but we're kind of consolidating in this window, right? So the nice thing about this one is it is more on the overbought side, but it does still have room to move. So if we do have a good earnings statement, again, we can see this potentially push up and maybe break some higher highs and continue this uptrend. They have almost recovered back to where they were. We can see that around the end of the year last year, they started to get this push up. And then at the beginning of this year, we kind of sat in this window here, right? And then we had this pullback in March, and it's been coming back fairly aggressively. So again, when I see this, to me, it makes sense that when you have this bullish pattern coming off of this huge drop-off that we saw in so many of these stocks, obviously from the coronavirus, this is a good indication that we may see a good earnings statement, right? So again, this is one that I'm going to keep an eye on tomorrow. It's definitely more on the lower cap side, so it does offer a potential for those, again, who don't really have a large position size to work with. If you're only investing with maybe a couple of $100, this is definitely one that we want to pay attention to. But let's also remember that it is not as stable of a company, right? So these lower cap companies do tend to be a little more risky. So again, we have to do our best as traders to manage our risk and only take positions where we see value. We want to wait for that confirmation and then go from there. So I'm going to wrap the video up here. And again, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of some potential movers on tomorrow, so you guys could be ready, and I hope you guys get some kind of value out of this. If you do, please hit that like and subscribe button. This way you could stay current on all my new videos that I add. And be sure to check out our Facebook group, Bull-Throttle Trading and Investing. And stay current on any alerts that I send out, more stocks that I may be watching, as well as others in the group. And I also, again, continue to post all of my videos in this group as well. So with that, I hope you guys are all ending today in the green, and I'll see you next time.